In the workshop, I thought it would be useful to make a video about quality steam fittings and workshop tools, so here it is. And the first steam fitting I'd like to show, because I do like these are slide valve type steam regulators, and they really are very good. I've used them for quite a few years. These are available from my friend Chris at 21st Century Steam. And also available from 21st Century Steam are these displacement lubricators. They're a little bit smaller than some other lubricators, so they're ideal for smaller engines. This is a pair of glass drip feed oilers. These are very high quality items, not made of plastic, made of glass. And Chris also does smaller ones for engines such as a double 10V or a 10V, the small Stuart engines. I must mention that if you buy some of these, they don't include a free 5p coin. That's just there to illustrate the size of these small parts. These are a pair of drain cocks, and they don't dribble, unlike some drain cocks that I could mention. This is a pressure gauge siphon, and here's an exploded view of it. 21st Century Steam don't currently have a website, but you can get in touch with Chris at steam.engine.com@hotmail.com. These are good things to have in the workshop, and it's better to buy them than make them. It's just quicker. These are brass oil cups. I tend to use the glass oilers for the main bearings and these on the eccentrics. So these are a selection of useful steam fittings from 21st Century Steam. Moving on now to safety valves. I always keep a small selection of these in a drawer in the workshop, because you never know when you're going to need to let off steam. These are all pop-type safety valves made by Jubilee Fittings and sold by Blackgates Engineering. Very high quality items in a variety of sizes. Jubilee Fittings is based near Wakefield in West Yorkshire. Don and David English, who run the business, make high quality steam fittings. These are a pair of injectors I bought a while back that are just too nice to fit on a boiler. I always keep at least one of these in stock because they do break now and again, or I'll get a boiler in without one. These are pressure gauges, once again available from Blackgates Engineering. These are compressor fittings. I get them from a company called Cages, quite close to where I live. These have a large pipe type thread on the end of them, and they're designed to screw into things like air tools or blowers or whatever you need to plug into your compressor. What I'm doing is modifying one of these because the thread on it is far too big and clumsy for what I need it to do. I use these to connect my air line to various steam engines. So first of all, I remove the thread, and as you can see, my old Boxford lathe cuts very well. It's removing the thread to this depth in one go. And there's not a hint of chatter. It still works and delivers the goods. The general idea is to turn this down and then silver solder a piece of pipe down the middle of it, and then fit a commercial ME type threaded union on the other end. This is very much a plain turning job, but don't forget to remove the sharp edges. And in no time at all, I have a small kit of parts: the compressor fitting, a small piece of pipe, a union cone and a union nut. And now it's time to put it all together. I'm in the outer part of the workshop, and I'm just cleaning the piece of pipe using some Scotch-Brite. Cleanliness is very important when you're silver soldering. When the piece of pipe is nice and clean, I coat the end of the pipe with some flux. This stuff is called tenacity flux, and it is really very tenacious. It really does eat into the metal. For copper to copper or copper to brass, I would normally use Easy Flow No. 2 silver solder flux, but in this case I'm silver soldering copper to steel, so tenacity flux is the best choice. Even though I've made quite a few videos on the subject of silver soldering, as well as showing the process in videos like this one, I still get asked questions. I don't know why this should be, but anyway, the secret is cleanliness, plenty of flux, plenty of heat, and the right kind of silver solder. This is Silver Flow 55. And there you go, it flashed around the joint immediately. As the hole in the steel compressor fitting is metric and the copper pipe is imperial, I'm putting a little bit more silver solder on there to fill the gap. And when it's cleaned up, it looks like this, which is quite neat for a fitting for a model steam engine. And this compressor fitting can be directly coupled to the steam engine, or I can push a piece of silicone rubber pipe on the end, and the union cone on the end of the pipe is sufficient to hold the silicone rubber pipe in place. Another useful function of having a compressor fitting with a union cone on the end is throttle control or regulator control. By moving the angle of which this meets the inlet pipe on this hypocycloidal engine, I can vary its speed. By moving the angle of the pipe against the inlet union on the engine, I can have a controlled air leak, so when I put it full on, I get all the pressure, When I move it to one side, some of the air leaks out and the engine runs more slowly. Some viewers have asked me, why is there a big lump out of the ring gear on this hypocycloidal engine? Well, to me, it looks a bit obvious, even when the engine's running, but just in case you haven't got it the first time round, I'll move it very slowly by hand. And by doing this, it clearly shows why a cutout is needed at the top and bottom of the stroke. I'll do it a few times so you can take it in. So I hope now viewers have got the principle. I'll just leave the engine running for a while, because it's a great engine and it's fascinating to watch running. That's enough of that, down to some serious stuff. This is a Barco spanner. This is a 100mm or 4-inch Barco spanner, invented by Barco. This is a very useful tool to have in the workshop. It's an assembly that allows you to hold parts in these crocodile clips and look at them through a magnifying glass. And in this clip, I'm using the assembly to look at the precision workmanship on this Barco spanner, which is now about 35 years old. Quite a few viewers of my channel, who are beginners, have been asking me what are the most important tools to buy first of all in the workshop. Well, a Barco spanner is one of those, but fairly high up on the list of tools to buy first in the workshop would be a pair of pipe benders for different size copper pipe. Possibly more important things to buy would be a lathe and a drilling machine and maybe a milling machine and a workbench. Fairly low down on the list is one of these. This is a pipe cutter that I seldom use. I just found it in the drawer. I normally use my small bandsaw for cutting pipe. But I can't use my bandsaw for cutting glass, and that's what this thing does. This is for cutting gauge glasses. Again, I found it in the drawer. I don't really use it. The idea is you hold it against the gauge glass, rotate the gauge glass, and then just snap off the end of the gauge glass. There now follows a health and safety warning. Don't do it like this. Don't use your bare hands because this is glass and you may cut yourself. Unusually, the glass didn't break very cleanly. There was a sharp bit sticking out. I just touched the end of the glass on my 1-inch belt sander and it cleaned it up. Back onto the subject of which tools to buy first in the workshop, well, a set of needle files is highly recommended because that is the normal way that I would cut these pieces of glass. I would file a groove across the glass and snap it off cleanly. These are well recommended for beginners. These are die holders. Now, tailstock die holders are better, more expensive, but these are also just as good if you use them properly. I would normally hold a piece of metal that required threading in the lathe chuck, and then I would guide this into place using the tailstock. Then all I have to do is just rotate the die holder and it works. I have 3 tailstock die holders, so why do I need more? Well, really it's just because I can have dies fitted in die holders permanently, and I just pick up the die holder with the die in it that I need to use. For me, anything in the workshop that saves time is worth doing. I was up at Blackgates Engineering recently buying some bits and pieces. Here is a collection of BA washers. While on the subject of Blackgates Engineering, I'd like to thank the viewers who have set up gift vouchers that I receive from Blackgates from time to time. Thank you very much, it really does make a difference. The other day I asked my daughter Charlotte if I could borrow an eyebrow pencil and she gave me a very funny look. Mind you, I was wearing my rather attractive little black dress at the time, complete with matching shoes and a handbag. An eyebrow pencil is a very useful piece of workshop equipment. Much better than this. This is a permanent marker. I need to be able to mark the positions of these steam engines and other components on the main baseboard, but if I use a permanent marker, it's going to leave a black line. If I use an eyebrow pencil, look here. When I wipe it, the eyebrow pencil disappears. The black permanent marker ink is not fully dry. This starts to disappear, but it doesn't. So look, I can just do this, make a mark on the board, then I can remove the engine to drill the holes in the baseboard for mounting. Then once I've piloted the holes in the bottom of the engine's baseboard, I can simply wipe off the marks with a cloth. A very simple and useful idea. That's about it for this one. Thanks for watching and I hope you found it useful.